Now, you knew it was coming. These are Donald Trump's accusers. Just what they got so far. Yet, he's the president of the United States of America. You knew this. You knew when everybody was coming forward on people, you knew who would come up next. And for all these people, the right-wing supporters and all that stuff, where are they at now? You know, the people who attack Franken but won't say a thing about Rob Moore? Of course they not. Ain't nobody surprised, Marshall. You know why? They knew this about him going in. Anybody who speak that freely and don't really care what he says is not somebody that honor women, honor equal rights. This guy has not done that ever. It's not about that. He's never been. And then they're going to be like, oh, that's fake news. I'm like, well, these women are actually exist and they actually are making claims. Now you get to see, will the feminists, the real feminists, step up for the fight? Or will they cower and succumb to the power? Of course, we all know it. This is Trump. But yet they elected him president of the United States of America. So if you're going to elect this guy president of the United States of America, knowing that he sexually assaulted or been accused of sexual misconduct, when he spoke about sexual misconduct in locker room talk, and you still elected him as president of the United States, which means that you don't care. It's clear as day, you do not care. All the right-wing supporters wanted to do was attack Franken. They wanted to attack Harvey Weinstein. Harvey did me wrong. Harvey did me so wrong. Not once did they talk about Rob Moore. I'm like, well, what about Rob Moore? Then they want to go Weinstein. He was a Clinton supporter. That no good Weinstein. Him and Obama were best friends. I'm like, well, what about your thing with Kevin Spacey? Another one. But what about Rob Moore? Oh, Republican Rob Moore. Oh, okay, there it is. Republican Rob Moore. Okay, can't say his name. Can't do that. We can't say Republican Rob Moore. We're going to let the state of Alabama decide what to do with Rob Moore. Now let's let the state do it. Well, what are we going to do with him? No, Terry, don't get me started on Cruz.
Where else Franken's hands may have gone before criticizing the senator's recent efforts to speak out against sexual harassment. Mr. Trump wading into the Franken controversy while continuing to ignore questions about the accusations against Republican Senate candidate Roy Moore.
Mr. President, should Roy Moore step aside, sir?
Press Secretary Sarah Sanders referring to last week's White House statement when asked about Mr. Trump's position on Moore's future. and punting the decision to Alabama voters.
The president believes that these allegations are very troubling and should be taken seriously, and he thinks that the people of Alabama should make the decision on who their next senator should be.
Mr. Trump going after Franken despite the fact that a number of women have accused him of similar conduct.
He was grabbing my breasts and trying to turn me towards him and kissing me.
The president has denied the accusations, attacking the women who came forward.
Every woman lied when they came forward to hurt my campaign.
Although he's on tape admitting to assaulting women in this now infamous tape.
You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. I don't need to do it. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the... do anything.
Tweeden says then comedian Al Franken forcibly kissed her while they were rehearsing a skit during a 2006 USO tour.
He just mashes his mouth to my lips, and you know, it was like wet, and he puts his tongue in my mouth. I was so angry.
After returning home, Tweeden says she came across the photo of Franken groping her on a CD given to her by the tour photographer.
It's belittling, it's humiliating. I mean, is that funny? Is that ever funny?
Tweeden choking up while explaining why she's coming forward after 11 years.
You know, you always... I don't want to be cliche, but you know, you talk about trying to leave the world a better place for your kids, you know?
Franken initially saying that the picture was intended to be funny but wasn't, before issuing a second statement apologizing. There's no excuse. I look at it now and I feel disgusted with myself. It isn't funny. It's completely inappropriate.
That one did seem heartfelt, and I believe it, and I gladly accept it, and thank you.
Franken says that he will cooperate with an ethics investigation on the Senate side called by Senate leaders Mitch McConnell as well as Chuck Schumer. There are a lot of lawmakers, female lawmakers, who are angry and frustrated now. They certainly hope that mandatory training when dealing with sexual harassment will at least start to address a problem that they call rampant here. In the meantime, Al Franken is laying low. Sources say that he apologized to his staff, that he was upset, and that he was emotional. Very few people have seen any sign of Al Franken since this scandal broke. John Allison.
Susanna, it'll be very interesting to see what happens there in the halls of Congress today. Thank you very much. So let's bring in CNN political analyst now, Maggie Haberman, to talk about all this. Maggie, great to have you. What's the thinking inside the White House about how to respond to all of these various sexual assault stories given Donald Trump's history?
So, as you know, there is not usually one linear line of thinking within this White House. There are different aides, and then there's the president, and you saw that yesterday. You saw Sarah Sanders in the briefing take the position that is the White House's position, which is this is troubling about Roy Moore, but this is up to the people of Alabama. The president, I'm told by a bunch of people, is very conscious of the fact that A, his endorsement of Luther Strange in that primary did not go very well, backfired on him. He was afraid of losing his own base. That is something that it stays with him and consumes him constantly. And he is aware of the, what he ran on and the impression of Washington, D.C. interfering in something statewide. You can make the case that this is a little different, but that is where they're coming from. However, he then tweets last night, as we saw, about Al Franken, and that, I think, falls in the bucket of the president gets, some desire to tweet and he doesn't control it, and then he goes ahead. I don't think they're as concerned about the president not talking about these issues because of the accusations against him, as I think they are just not wanting to get involved in what is an incredibly complicated situation in Alabama, where Roy Moore likely won't win based on current polling, but he still could win. And they don't want to look as if they are interfering, and basically, essentially, if Roy Moore does win and the president comes out and says he should get out, or it makes a huge statement about it, and he doesn't, and wins, that looks like the president has no juice, so why would you waste it then?
Does the White House, and I think to whatever extent we can know this, the president, do they think that they have no baggage whatsoever when it comes to all the women who accused him of things on the record?
Aides think that he does. They're aware of what the reality is. the president, as you know, tends to portray a different story and insists that this is all not true and all the plot. He makes things very hard for his own White House when he does things like go out and tweet about Al Franken, because it's very hard to say we're just not getting involved in these things, but I am going to get involved when it's a Democrat, and I'm going to get involved when it's a Democrat. And while the current conversation about sexual harassment and sexual assault is vitally important and long overdue, but not all things are necessarily equal in terms of how egregious they are. And what Al Franken did was clearly.
I couldn't see anybody, the general public, electing him a second time. I think he's one term and definitely out, and I think that's what Trump wants. Trump had his chance to say he's president of the United States.
When she was 14, I think it's important to say, because that's what's
right. And several other women have made accusations about his behavior. That's pretty egregious. The president has not used his Twitter feed to weigh in on that, and I think that when you have a tweet or lack thereof to compare side by side, that is where he puts his own team in a bad place.
But here's the paradoxical lesson that we're all getting during this watershed moment, which is when you own up to it and admit it, or at least apologize or give some sort of acknowledgement. Let's look at Kevin Spacey, let's look at Louis C.K., let's look at Harvey Weinstein. You go down in flames, you lose your job, your movies are taken down, you're edited out of things. When you say they're all liars and you never admit it, you are elected president. So Roy Moore has a model that he can follow. Sure. And he seems to be following the I want to win this one.
Yes and no. I think that I think a couple of things. I think that I think there is something about.
See, the Democrats admit it, the Republicans don't. Yeah, Oskino was supposed to be in that Philly video, by the way. He didn't wind up over there. But speaking of my man Terry Crews, my man mentioned something about Terry Crews. Where is he at? Big Slim, there you go. You want to know why people didn't really come out for the cries of Mr. Crews? Let me explain something to you, Big Slim. Why do you think that guy felt comfortable enough to go up to do that to Crews in front of his wife? Did that ever cross your mind? Why did that guy feel comfortable to do that to him? We've seen things with him that he's done. We ain't gonna say what movie, but he was on a beach in a pair of Speedos, and the people that was around him that were his friends were, let's say, they might eat a pack of Skittles. And one definitely was eating Skittles. And he allowed one of them to grab his buttocks, talking about how strong it is. Oh my God, it's like a brick. And the dude that was a real street dude that just happened to be there on the set saw that. And this was years ago. He has never lived that down. It was like, dog. I'm like, Terry Crews, why you let them dudes grab your butt? It's not funny. He was salty about that. And he was just flexing, making his butt tight. And they grabbing his butt. talking about how strong his butt muscles was. And they was a pack of Skittles. And everybody thought my boy was just being funny. Now, I'm going to tell you something, dude. I know what you're going to say, right? Do you know how Mr. Cruz speak? You ever heard him speak to the public? Right, he sound tough, right? Yeah, what you going over? Yeah, that's how he talk, right? What if I told you that's not how Terry Crews talk? Okay. Y'all want to hear how Terry Crews really talks?
I have a practice where I have to do what I'm afraid of. You have to do what scares you the most. Because this is the thing. I could have a nice, comfy, cozy little, keep doing the same old thing, and I'm bored to tears. I can't be bored. I'm always push it. Because I'm living in free play land. Look, I'm from Flint, Michigan. I'm an old football player. I should be in jail. It ain't no thing. I'm living, listen, I like taking risks. I like doing my thing. Hey, I fart in public. It ain't no big deal. You understand what I'm saying? Because I'm human. And I tell all my business. Everybody knows, listen, everybody who walks up on me knows more about me than I know about them. Right. And I have no problem with that. Because I'm a human being, and I feel like everyone telling their stories is how the world gets changed.
That's right. And so speaking of that, is that what prompted you recently to share a personal experience in wake of the big scandals going on in Hollywood?
That was exactly why I wanted to do it. Because I said, you know what, especially in masculine culture, is don't talk. And that's the way things get perpetuated. And, I had to support these ladies. I did. In fact, I actually backed out because I didn't want anything I did to become part of the story. I wanted to show that, these ladies been telling the truth. They're telling the truth, and they couldn't say something because they were afraid, and they kept them in fear. And the thing is, I did the same thing. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, I got your back. And one thing is just the pre-Weinstein era and the post-Weinstein era. And Hollywood will never be the same. It's a great, great day. Everybody can breathe today because you can go to work and that's all it's about. It's awesome. Awesome.
Now, does that sound like the guy? Does that sound like the guy that you've seen on every other thing? Does that sound like the man that played on the Chris Rock show? Does that sound like the guy? And I didn't make a video about it because I didn't want to tear him apart. I didn't want to tear that down. But we laughed at my boy when he said that about Terry Crews. He laughed. Thought he was joking. So who was that? Big Slim? Now, Big Slim,
molesting a minor, that I think that it goes well beyond as bad as the accusations about the president were back in the fall of 2016. I think that this goes to a different degree of depth. But I also think that Alex Burns, my colleague and our colleague, has made this point repeatedly, that actually what Donald Trump did was basically refuse to get thrown out of the ring. This happened, and then he marched right into the debates with Clinton. He was savage against her by bringing her husband's accusers to that debate. And that was one of the most astonishing things we've ever seen in national politics, but it did help him win. He did go out and basically punch his way through. Roy Moore isn't quite doing that. He won't debate. He's basically going to a series of churches, but he's staying in a close hole.
He's also slinking out of press conferences when it comes up.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's not quite following the same model as what Donald Trump did.
Maggie, if we can get you on not just President Trump, because you're an expert on this presidency, but you also have covered the Clintons for years and years and years, and now there is a moment where people are saying there needs to be a new reckoning of what happened during the Clinton years. Kirsten Gillibrand, senator from New York now, says that she thinks the president should have resigned. I think we have that sound. Let's play.
Is it your view that President Clinton should have stepped down at that time, given the allegations?
Yes, I think that is the appropriate response, but I think things have changed today, and I think under those circumstances there should be a very different reaction, and I think in light of this conversation we should have a very different conversation about President Trump and a very different conversation about allegations against him.
What do you think the right way to interpret her stances?
I think there are a couple of ways. I think one is she, remember, has been at the forefront of trying to bring sexual assault in the military to the public consciousness as an issue. So it's not a surprise that she would actually focus on this. Number one, it is not, and I think that she feels the need to have her remarks be consistent. But let's be clear, she is seen as a likely 2020 candidate. She sees where the conversation is going, and I think.
Why do you think the dude from Family Matters came forward and said what he said? I ain't one of these dudes coming out here talking about, oh, this happened to me, that's happened to me. They all thirsty. They thirsty. I ain't gonna tell you who did what, because I ain't thirsty. You know who he was talking about, right? He's talking about Cruz. I ain't one of these dudes coming out because they thirsty. He thirsty. But I'll let them live in infamy. Yeah, Darius McCary. Yeah, he spent all his money on Superhead. My Irv Gotti voice.
place where she can say that she has addressed this. Look, she is also speaking about something that a lot of Democrats have been saying privately for the last week, which is it is hard to reconcile how Democrats, not all Democrats, but some Democrats did defend President Clinton. Yes, it was consensual, according to both sides. On the other hand, there was a clear abuse of power dynamic at play. You have the President of the United States and an intern in the White House. And then you had a bunch of other women who had also accused him. And so,
not consensual.
Right. And so I think that there is a very obvious question of why believe one set of women and not the other. Remember, this was Donald Trump's argument against Hillary Clinton, and you can make the argument that that's unfair to blame her for what her husband did. I mean, he was making an argument that she had also criticized these women. But it does make it complicated for Democrats to say one set of accusations is bad, another is not, and that's why you saw the Republicans in the Senate pounce so hard on the Al Franken issue yesterday.
Right, they did give him an out. They didn't say he should resign. They said ethics committee.
They said ethics. Well, and that, look, and because I don't think that they want to set up the paradigm of get out, because what else is coming down the pike on either side, right? So of course it's going to go in a direction that's going to be a manageable process. Maggie, thank you. Always great to get your perspective. For having me on all of this.
Right, all eyes now shift to the Senate after that.
So that's where they are right now on the situation. They kind of really drifted off the subject like we did here. Right, food ain't growing over there in North Korea. They got to get food shipped to them, so they got to play nice. I agree, Skippy. I agree. It's the hypocrisy of it that gets everybody. But that's why I put it on this news channel here, because don't nobody notice except for us, where you could just talk freely. But that's why I never came out the cruise. You know, I'm like, you know what? Let's just leave it where it is. But just so you would know, Big Slim, he don't talk like that nowhere else. But he'll talk like that with them pack of Skittles. So now you got to ask yourself, hearing what you just heard, why did that person feel comfortable to walk up to you and do that? That's the first time you ever heard him talk like that, isn't it? It don't sound nothing like him, do it? Why? Because he was in a comfortable environment. Because when he was doing that interview, he's doing that interview with people who are known pack of Skittles. That was 2 snaps in a circle. Now I see how he got a lot of these roles. Yep. Oh man. Now you see what went really with that. I can't think of a pack of Skittles fruit roll-up that would sit there and have the gall to walk up to a 270-pound chiseled brother with his wife in tow and go and grab him in the private areas and think he would live. Of course. Name a role where he didn't act tough. He talks to how he looks. But when nobody around, he started talking like that. Because that was the first thing that came to my head. Then I remember what my boy said years ago. Like, dog, Terry Crews. I'm like, Terry Crews? You sure? Dude, that's probably just some dude working out. You probably thought it was Terry Crews. And he was adamant it was Terry Crews. And now it all makes sense. You know how they say one day it all makes sense? One day it would all make sense. So when he told that story, and I said, wow, you mean to tell me you let somebody just walk up to you because he was a producer or not, grab you in the privates, and all you did was grab your wife and go out of there? Brian McKinney, John Doe, the former Minnesota Vikings player, former Baltimore Raven, Super Bowl champion, national champion. He's the biggest record producer now in Miami. He brought Mr. Berg out to his home, let him live with him, and changed his name to Hitmaker and have him as a producer. Now he's quote unquote prospering. Just follow Brian McKinney's history and you'll find out everything you need to know. There was a party boat in Minnesota. Everybody remembers the story, but they don't remember what took place. Fred Smoot and others were involved. Anybody know the NFL should have heard of the Minnesota Vikings party boat incident. Culpepper had his name removed off that party boat. Fred Smoot, one of the best corners in the league at the time. I remember him as a rookie. He was there involved in the situation. There's a vicious rumor that went on with the boat and McKinney, Williams, him. Dante was on the boat but got himself removed, as he said, like, I had nothing to do with that. And his career has tanked ever since. Yep, he played for the Skins. Fred Smoot. Smoot! That was one of my cousin's favorite players. From a rookie. Coming on in. That's my man Smoot. Fred Smoot. Fred Smoot did an interview with somebody talking about gays. And the reason why they interviewed Smoot, because they already know who they talking about. He was like, yeah, I played with some people that we all knew were, you know, that way. We all knew who he was talking about. We all knew about what happened on that boat. And the police got involved and shut this whole thing down. And the Minnesota Vikings covered all this up. Because it's Minnesota. They did not want to damage their team. And those guys was charged. 3 guys was charged with disorderly conduct. Fred Smoot included, Williams and McKinney, who the rumor said they were in there like Chinese figure cuffs. McKinney was on his knees getting filled out like an application, and he was in the middle of the link. Linked from both sides like a pair of Chinese finger cuffs. Do your digging. Go in there and Google the people names I gave you. I'm quite sure you will find what you're looking for. Freak wasn't on that boat. And some of the activity on that boat will go down in history. So when they was talking about Michael Sams, he was the first one to just come out. And he was the first one to be escorted out. But he just couldn't, he wasn't good enough. That's just all it was. They only signed him for the attention. So that's the way they really felt about this.